The night Isla Moore told me she had nowhere else to go, I learned there was a difference between being someone's safe place and being the place they actually chose. She stood on my porch, barefoot, soaked through a gray sweater, clutching a canvas bag while rain hammered the street behind her. I had seen Isla angry, amused, exhausted, even sick enough to threaten a thermometer. I had never seen her frightened. "Nathan," she said, and my name sounded like the last thing she had managed to hold on to. "Can I come in? I don't have anywhere else to go." I stepped aside before my brain caught up. What I didn't know was that her bag held proof that could tear her family apart, a train ticket out of Seattle, and one truth about me she had buried for months. By morning, I would be helping her stop a property sale. By Friday, I would have to decide whether loving her meant asking her to stay or proving I could let her leave. If you believe home can become a person before it becomes an address, like this story, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. Would you have opened the door? I had been 10 minutes from bed when the pounding started. Not knocking. Pounding. 3 fast hits, a pause, then 2 more hard enough to rattle the narrow window beside my front door. I was 29, a structural engineer, and lived alone in a brick townhome on a steep Queen Anne street. I was already moving before I had decided whether I was annoyed or worried. Then I saw Isla through the glass. She lived next door. At 25, she was usually so put together that even grocery runs looked intentional. That night, her dark hair was plastered to her face, her gray sweater was soaked through, and she had no shoes. I opened the door. "Jesus, Isla, can I come in?" I stepped aside immediately. Wind threw rain across the entryway before I got the door shut. Only then did I notice she was shaking. "Sit down. I'm fine. You're making a lake in my hall. Sorry." That wasn't a complaint. I wrapped the wool blanket from my couch around her shoulders. She flinched when my hands came near her neck. Not away from me, exactly, but like her body had forgotten how to sort help from danger. "Did somebody hurt you?" Her eyes snapped to mine. "No." Claire didn't touch me. The fact that she named her sister before I mentioned anyone answered several questions. What happened? Isla looked at the canvas bag clutched against her chest. She sold the Rainier property. The small commercial building had belonged to her father. After he died 18 months earlier, it went into a family LLC owned equally by Isla and Claire. Claire sold her half? All of it. That doesn't make sense, I know. Did you sign something? No. Her voice broke on that one word. She used an old power of attorney Dad had me sign when he was sick. It was only supposed to cover maintenance and taxes while I was in Boston. I revoked it last year. I have the email. I have the certified letter. Is the sale closed? I don't know. She said it was done, then said the buyer wires the rest tomorrow. That sounds like it isn't finished. I know. Why would she do it? Isla stared at me. Gambling. Something inside my chest went cold. My father had gambled away our house when I was 14. Not in one dramatic night, but in ATM withdrawals, secret cards, loans, and promises that became more detailed as they became less true. My mother spent years trying to control damage that kept changing shape. Isla knew my father and I were not close. She did not know why. I went to the kitchen. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Making tea." "Nathan, you're shaking." "I don't need tea." "Correct. You need dry clothes, legal advice, probably an injunction, and sleep. Tea is the part I can produce in 60 seconds. Her mouth twitched. It was barely a smile, but it told me the Isla I knew was still in there. When my project in Tacoma kept me out late for 3 straight weeks, My recycling bin somehow made it back from the curb before I got home. Isla claimed the wind had moved it. The wind was apparently extremely civic-minded. When she mentioned once that caffeine after 4 made her anxious, I started keeping chamomile tea, even though I considered herbal tea hot lawn water. When I had the flu last winter, a paper bag appeared outside my door with chicken soup, electrolyte packets, and a sticky note that read, "You are not allowed to call this a minor system failure." When she went to Boston for a conservation workshop, I watered the rosemary plant in her kitchen. She had never asked me to. I had never admitted that I knew exactly which window got enough afternoon sun to keep it alive. None of it counted as romance because we had quietly agreed not to count. I handed her the tea. She looked at the mug and frowned. "This is chamomile." "Tragic. You hate chamomile." "I hate drinking it." Her fingers tightened around the ceramic. "Thank you." I shrugged like it was nothing. That was lie number 1 of the night. The second came 20 minutes later, after she changed into a pair of my sweatpants rolled 4 times at the ankle, and an old University of Washington hoodie I had not worn in years. She came back downstairs holding her canvas bag. "Claire told me to get out," she said. I looked up from my laptop. "Tonight?" She said if I thought she was a criminal, I shouldn't live under her roof. "It's half your house." I pointed that out. "How did that go?" She threw my shoes into the yard. I looked at her bare feet. That explains one mystery. I grabbed the bag and left. In the rain. I wasn't exactly making a transportation plan. I closed the laptop. "You can stay here." Her eyes lifted. There it was again. That naked fear. "I don't have anywhere else to go." The words landed harder now that she was warm enough to say them without shivering. I should have told her she could stay as long as she needed. Instead I said, "Tonight, yes." Her expression changed by half an inch. It was enough. "Tonight? You're upset. You've had a shock. I'm not helping you make permanent decisions at midnight. I didn't ask you to adopt me. That's good. The paperwork sounds exhausting." She stared. Then a small laugh escaped her, unwilling and broken at the edges. I let myself breathe. "You get the guest room," I said. "Tomorrow we call an attorney. Then we figure out where you want to be." "Where I want to be." Important distinction. She looked down at the tea. "You always do that." "Do what?" Turn feelings into a checklist. I could have denied it. Instead, I opened the laptop. Item 1. Insult neighbor's coping style. Nathan. Item 2. Sleep before committing felonies. I am not committing a felony. You looked capable for a second. That earned me a real smile. It lasted maybe 2 seconds. I remember both of them. At 7 the next morning, I found Isla asleep at my kitchen table with her cheek on a stack of documents. She had made it through maybe 4 hours in the guest room before anxiety dragged her downstairs. Rain still ticked against the windows, softer now. The canvas bag lay open beside her. I eased the top sheet from under her hand. It was a purchase agreement. The buyer was a holding company I did not recognize. The sale price was low enough that even I knew something was wrong. The signature line for Isla's consent had Claire's name, followed by the words, "Attorney in fact." Underneath sat a printed email from Isla to the family attorney from 11 months earlier. "Please confirm receipt of my revocation of the limited power of attorney granted to Claire Moore." The reply confirmed it. There was also a certified mail receipt and a train ticket, Seattle to Portland. Friday, 6:10 p.m., 3 days away. I stared at it longer than I should have. Isla shifted. I put the ticket back exactly where it had been. She opened one eye. You're terrible at sneaking. I wasn't sneaking. You were doing the careful paper thing. The what? The thing where you move evidence like you expect a jury to grade you. I slid the purchase agreement toward her. Do you know this buyer? No. The closing date says today. I know. You said Claire told you the sale was done. She lies when she's scared. How often is she scared? More than I realized. She sat up and rubbed both hands over her face. I put coffee beside her. She looked at it suspiciously. Regular? Regular. What if I'm anxious? It is 7 a.m. You're allowed. She took a sip. I waited. Finally, I said, Portland? Her hand stopped. For a second, she did not look at me. Then she set the cup down. You went through my bag. I moved one document and saw the ticket. That's not better. I know, you could have asked. I should have. She leaned back. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller. Are you leaving Friday? I was supposed to. Supposed to? I accepted a 6-month conservation fellowship at the Alderhouse Archive in Portland. That sounds good. It is. When were you planning to tell me? Her eyes met mine. You're my neighbor, Nathan. I deserved that. The truth still stung. Right. And we have slightly bigger problems. Right. She took another drink, and I watched the tremor in her fingers. Before Martin's appointment, Isla asked me to walk next door so she could get shoes, a coat, and her laptop. Her key did not work. She tried twice, then stepped back from the duplex. She changed the lock. Anger hit me faster than judgment. I'll call a locksmith. No, it's half your house, I know. Then legally, Nathan. Her voice cracked, and I stopped. She sat on the low brick wall beside the porch, still wearing my rain jacket, and stared at the wet street. I need 5 minutes where nobody solves me. That landed harder than it should have. Okay. I stood 10 feet away and watched water run along the curb. 5 minutes became 7. I did not call anyone. I did not make a plan out loud. Finally, Isla looked over. Your rosemary is dying. I blinked. What rosemary? The plant in your kitchen. Blue pot. I propagated it from mine before Boston. I thought that was decorative. I trusted you with a living thing. That seems irresponsible. For the first time that morning, she smiled. Then she stood. Okay, we can solve things again. I nodded. Her boundary had not pushed me away. It had shown me how to stay. At 8 the next morning, I called Martin Alvarez, a real estate attorney I knew from a project dispute. I gave him the outline, handed the phone to Isla, and left the room. It was her story to tell. That mattered to me. Too many people had spoken for my mother when my father's gambling got bad, including me. People who are drowning need help, but they also need someone to stop grabbing the wheel from their hands. Martin saw us at 10. He read the purchase agreement, the revocation email, and the certified mail receipt twice. The good news is I don't think title has transferred yet, he said. Isla exhaled. The bad news? The buyer's escrow company expects funds to release this afternoon. Your sister appears to have used authority that had already been revoked. We can put everyone on formal notice and, if necessary, seek a temporary restraining order. What happens to Claire? That depends on what she signed and represented. You don't have to decide every consequence today. You do have to decide whether you're willing to stop the transfer. Isla looked at me. I did not nod. I did not tell her what to do. Yes, she said. For the next 6 hours, she became painfully precise. She called the bank, forwarded records, contacted the LLC accountant, and spoke to the escrow officer in a voice so calm I could hear what it cost her. I handled only what she asked me to handle. I bought lunch. I found a phone charger. I picked up a pair of cheap black flats because she still had no shoes. When she forgot to eat, I put half a sandwich in front of her. When her hand started shaking, I moved a glass of water within reach. "Please don't tell me it's going to be okay," she said. "I won't." She looked at me. "We can say it isn't finished, that I can handle." At 4:12, the escrow company confirmed the transfer had been frozen pending review. Isla walked into the hallway, put both palms against the wall, and breathed. "I saved it," she whispered, "for today." She looked over her shoulder. "You really don't let people have dramatic victories. I believe in load-bearing celebrations." Her laugh broke into a sob. I crossed the space between us, and she leaned into me. Her forehead hit my shoulder. Her hands clenched in the back of my shirt. "I'm so angry," she said. "I know, I hate her. I know, I love her, I know." She pulled back. "How do you know?" There was the door I had kept closed for years. My dad gambled away our house. She went still. I told her enough. The betting, the secret debt, my mother believing the next promise, me learning spreadsheets before I learned to drive. "Did he ever stop?" she asked. "For stretches. Long enough to make everyone hope." "My mom finally left when I was 17. Her eyes softened. For a moment her hand stayed curled in my shirt. Then she noticed. She let go. The space between us returned too fast. On the drive home, Claire called again and again until Isla finally answered. "What did you do?" Claire demanded. "I stopped the sale." "You don't understand. I owe people money. How much?" "Enough." "That isn't a number." Claire's breathing turned ragged. She said she could fix everything if Isla let the sale close, that she would replace Isla's share later. It was the kind of promise I had heard from my father. Specific enough to sound responsible, impossible enough to require faith. Isla's face went gray. "How long have you been gambling?" Claire avoided the question, then asked whether I was in the car. "Yes," Isla said. "Of course he is. What is that supposed to mean?" "It means you always run to him. Every time something breaks, Nathan fixes it. Every time you're upset, you end up on the back steps until he comes outside. You keep saying you're leaving Seattle, but you postponed Portland twice." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Isla went very still. "That has nothing to do with this." "It has everything to do with you," Claire said. "You act like I'm the only one who can't let go." The call ended. After 3 silent blocks, I asked, "You postponed Portland twice?" "Yes." "Why?" She stared through the rain-streaked window. "Not now." For once, I let the question stay unanswered. Claire was sitting on my front step when we arrived. She looked worse than Isla had the night before. Wet hair, smeared mascara, hands that would not stay still. "I need to talk to you," she said. Isla stopped at the sidewalk. "You can talk from there. Please." "From there." Claire glanced at me. "This is family." So was the property. I stayed beside the door and kept my mouth shut. Claire's explanation came in pieces. Online poker 8 months ago. Then sports bets. Then loans. Then a private lender charging interest fast enough to make panic compound. She had taken money from the LLC account, replaced some with cash advances, lost more, and convinced herself the Rainier sale would reset everything. She cried. She apologized. Then she turned the apology into a request. "If you let the sale close, I can make you whole later." Isla closed her eyes. My father had used different words for the same bargain. Claire stepped closer. "I'm your sister." Isla opened her eyes again. Yes, and I love you. But no. I won't let the sale close. I won't lend you money. I won't sign anything. I won't tell anyone this was a misunderstanding. You'd let me lose everything? I'm not doing this to you. The debt is doing this. The lies are doing this. The gambling is doing this. Claire looked at me. You put that in her head? I saw Isla brace, and I understood exactly what she needed from me. No, I said. She put it in mine. I spent all day trying not to make decisions for her. Isla looked at me, and something passed between us that felt larger than agreement. Claire stayed another 20 minutes. By the end, she had agreed to meet Martin the next morning, turn over account access, and talk to a treatment counselor. None of that made the betrayal smaller. After she left, Isla sat on my porch step. I sat one step below her. You could have told her she was wrong, she said. About what? Me always running to you. I looked at the wet street. You want me to say she was wrong? No. That single word carried enough subtext to keep me awake for a week. After a while, I asked, why did you postpone Portland? She rubbed her thumb over the zipper of my rain jacket. The first time was because Dad died. The second time I told them Claire still needed help with the estate. Did she? Yes. That's not the whole answer. No. The rain softened. Then she looked at me. You were part of it. My heartbeat turned stupid. What part? The part where leaving felt harder than it was supposed to. She stood before I could ask anything else. Don't. I didn't say anything. You were about to. I was breathing. You breathe like an engineer before asking structurally dangerous questions. Despite everything, I laughed. She went inside, leaving me with the sentence she had finally admitted. You were part of it. The next morning, we made breakfast in my kitchen with the awkward ease of people who had crossed several emotional borders and still had not agreed on what country they were in. Isla opened the cabinet above the stove and pulled down the blue ceramic mug. You know where that is, I said. I gave it to you. You said you found it on clearance. I did. You also said it was ugly. It is. Then why did you buy it? She looked at the chipped handle. Your old one cracked. I remembered dropping my favorite mug on the front steps 18 months earlier. 2 days later, the blue one appeared outside my door. I had assumed it was a joke. 3 quiet acts of care had become 10, then 20, and we had both agreed to call the pattern coincidence. Isla. Don't make breakfast weird. Breakfast was already weird. She tried to hide a smile. Then I asked the question I had been carrying since the storm. Why did you come to my door? Her expression changed. Because Claire threw me out. That explains why you left your house. It was raining. Jenna lives 6 blocks away. She leaned against the counter. This is not an interrogation. No. I set down my fork. You're right. I'm sorry. I turned toward the sink. Behind me, she said quietly. Because I knew you'd open the door. I looked back. She folded her arms. That's all I can say right now. It was not all. We both knew it. But it was enough to change the room. By noon the next day, the legal problem had grown teeth. The LLC accountant found 3 unauthorized withdrawals totaling $42,000, plus a promissory note Claire had signed against expected sale proceeds. Martin believed Isla could separate herself from most of the liability, but only if they documented exactly what Claire had done. That meant understanding the building itself. I inspected the Rainier property that afternoon. The roof would need replacement within 2 years. The upstairs plumbing was aging. The reserve account was nearly empty. Mr. Park, the tailor downstairs, had rented there for 19 years, and went quiet when Isla explained that the building might have changed hands without warning. "We're trying to keep things stable," she told him. Trying. Not promising. I watched her write down every tenant question. She never offered certainty she did not have. She called Martin about lease protections, the accountant about reserve requirements, and a roofing company about estimates. She was furious, frightened, and still careful not to make her fear someone else's problem. That was when I stopped being able to call what I felt neighborly concern. I loved her. The realization was almost annoyingly calm. I loved the way she set boundaries without pretending they erased grief. I loved that she could be angry with Claire and still send her treatment resources. I loved that she corrected me when I became too protective. Most of all, I loved that she did not need me to be her hero. That last part frightened me because usefulness had always been my armor. After growing up in a house where every crisis seemed to require fixing, I had learned to make myself valuable before I made myself vulnerable. With Isla, I wanted something I could not earn by carrying boxes, making calls, or repairing roofs. I wanted to be chosen. On Thursday evening, the fellowship in Portland emailed Isla for a final answer. If she was still coming, she had to be on the train the next evening. We sat in my living room with untouched takeout between us. At 9, Claire called from Martin's office. She had turned over the LLC passwords and agreed to enter an intensive outpatient treatment program. It was a beginning, not a repair. "I'm sorry," Claire said through the speaker. "I know," Isla answered. "Do you forgive me?" Isla closed her eyes. "No." The word was gentle and final. "I love you," she continued. "I hope you get better. I don't trust you right now. Those things can all be true." When the call ended, she sat with both hands around the blue mug. After a long silence, she said, "I'm going to Portland." There it was. The loss I had been trying to behave around. "When?" "Tomorrow." "Okay." Her brows drew together. "That's it? What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. Do you want me to tell you not to go?" She looked at the floor. "I don't know." I sat opposite her. "Then I won't." Her face tightened. "That's convenient." "Convenient, no. Convenient would be pretending I don't care. Then say what you want." The room went still. She had finally cornered me with honesty. "I want you." Her eyes lifted. "I want you to stay. I want to make coffee for you in the morning and complain about your plant instructions. I want to know when you get home. I want you to keep moving my recycling bin and denying it. I want a lot of things I don't have the right to ask from you while your life is on fire. Nathan, I love you." For 1 second, neither of us moved. Rain tapped the windows as if Seattle had decided subtlety was no longer necessary. Isla set the mug down carefully. "How long?" "I don't know. That's a lie." "Fine. Long enough to buy chamomile on purpose." A tear slid down her cheek, and she laughed despite it. Then she shook her head. "I can't answer that tonight." The rejection hurt, even though I understood it. "I know." "No, you don't. I came here because I needed somewhere safe. If we turn that week into a relationship, how do I know I'm not confusing safety with love? I had no defense because I had been afraid of the same thing." "You don't," I said. She stared at me. "And neither do I." I leaned forward. "I'm scared you love being cared for by me more than you love me. I'm scared I love being needed by you more than I love you. I don't think either is true. But I don't want us to use a crisis as proof." Her eyes filled again. "That is the most emotionally responsible thing anyone has ever said to me, and I hate you for it." "Fair." She stood and crossed the room. For a second, I thought she would kiss me. Instead, she pressed her forehead to my chest. I put my hands lightly on her shoulders. "I love you too," she whispered. Every nerve in my body lit up. Then she added, "And I'm still going." I closed my eyes. Okay, I need to know I can leave and still choose you. That sentence broke something in me and healed something else in the same breath. I rested my chin against her hair. "Then go." She pulled back. That sounded hostile. "I'm new at this. You're terrible at romance. I bought you emergency drugstore shoes." "Exactly." We both laughed, and neither of us pretended the confession had solved anything. The next morning, I drove her to King Street Station. She had 2 suitcases, 1 garment bag, her canvas document bag, and the blue mug wrapped in a dish towel. "You're stealing my mug. I bought it. You gave it to me. I'm reclaiming it under emergency provisions. Legally questionable. Call Martin." The station smelled like coffee and wet wool. Announcements echoed overhead. I carried her larger suitcase to the platform entrance. She checked the time. So. Neither of us knew how to do goodbye now. A week ago, we had been neighbors who pretended not to notice each other. Now she knew I loved her. I knew she loved me, and she was still leaving. Strangely, that made the words feel more trustworthy. "What happens next?" she asked. "I visit." "When?" "Not this weekend." She looked offended. "You just confessed your love and now you're busy? You start Monday. You need to learn your neighborhood, unpack, sleep, and figure out which grocery store overcharges you. You have a plan." "I always have a plan. What about the weekend after? I'll take the 725. Her mouth softened. "Okay. And you come up 2 weeks later. Maybe I'll be busy." "Then you'll tell me." She looked at me for a long moment. "That simple?" No. Simple is not the same as easy." The boarding announcement sounded. Isla reached for the suitcase handle. I did not let go immediately. Neither did she. Then I released it. She stepped toward the gate, turned back, walked 2 steps toward me. I stayed still. She touched my jaw. "This is not me answering because I'm scared," she said. "I know. This is not me staying. I know. This is me choosing one thing." Then she kissed me. It was not cinematic. Someone rolled a suitcase into my heel. A child nearby was screaming about a muffin. Isla's nose was cold. It was the best kiss of my life. Short, certain. When she pulled back, I forgot several useful words. She smiled. "Engineer breathing, structurally dangerous." "Good." Then she left. I watched until the crowd swallowed her. I did not chase the train. That was how I knew I was changing. The next 6 weeks were romantic in the least cinematic ways possible. I learned the Amtrak schedule. Isla learned that I could turn a good morning text into a weather briefing if unsupervised. We argued once about how often to call, apologized before either of us could turn it into a test, and tried again. She did not move back into the duplex. She rented her room through a formal lease and kept financial controls on the LLC, even when Claire complained that the boundaries felt like punishment. Claire stayed in treatment. Progress was uneven, but at least it was measurable in actions instead of promises. On my first Portland visit, I brought Isla the rosemary plant in a cardboard box. She opened the door to her tiny furnished apartment and stared at it. "You brought a plant across state lines. It looked lonely. You forgot to water it." "I watered it." "When?" "Recently." She checked the soil and gave me a look usually reserved for structural negligence. Later, while I assembled a second-hand bookshelf, she sat beside me on the floor. "You know I can do that," she said. "Yes." "And you're doing it anyway?" "Yes." Why? I looked up. Because I like doing things for you. And if I don't need you to? Still like it. Her expression softened. That answer mattered more to me than any dramatic declaration. We were learning, slowly, that care could be freely given without becoming a debt. 3 months after the night she ran to my door, the sale dispute finally settled. The buyer walked away after being reimbursed for documented expenses, and Claire accepted personal responsibility for the debts she had created outside her authority. The Rainier building stayed in the family LLC, under strict outside management. Nothing magically returned to normal. Claire apologized again without asking Isla to forgive her. That was the first apology Isla trusted enough to hear. She still would not give Claire access to money or property. She still loved her. After one of their meetings in Portland, Isla and I walked beneath a bakery awning while rain thickened over the street. "You were right," she said. "Please be specific. I want to preserve the moment." She nudged me. "About not asking me to stay that first week. I remember being exceptionally wise. You were irritating, also accurate." She slipped her hand into mine. "If you had asked me to stay in Seattle, I might have. That's why I didn't." "I know." We stood there listening to tires hiss over wet pavement. Then she said, "There's something I never told you about that night." I turned toward her. When I said I had nowhere else to go, that wasn't literally true. The sentence landed strangely. She kept going before I could react. Jenna would have let me stay. Mara had given me a spare key to her apartment because she was out of town. I had enough money for a hotel. Okay. I wasn't trying to manipulate you, I know. I didn't even think of it as a lie. I meant I had nowhere else I could go and be scared. That silenced me. She looked out at the rain. I could have gone to other people and acted fine. I knew how to do that. I had done it for years. With you, I knew I could show up barefoot and shaking and not have to perform competence. My throat tightened. "That was why you came to me?" "Part of it." "What was the other part?" She gave me a look. "You really want the structurally dangerous question?" "I've reinforced the area." A small smile appeared, then faded. "I had already postponed Portland twice because of you. I did not speak. Not because you asked me to. You never did. But every time I imagined leaving Seattle, I thought about stupid things. You bringing in my trash bins before storms. The spare umbrella you kept by the door after I forgot mine once. You checking my tires before winter. You pretending not to notice when I sat on the back steps because I wanted company but didn't know how to ask for it." She paused. "And the night my dad died. I remembered that night instantly. She had called me from a hospital parking garage at 2 a.m. I drove there with coffee. We sat in my truck until sunrise. She barely spoke. I held her hand and never asked her to make the grief understandable. "I think I started loving you there," she said. My chest hurt in the best possible way. "Then why didn't you say anything? Same reason you didn't." "Cowardice? Quality control?" I laughed. She squeezed my hand. "That night at your door, I had options. I just didn't have another place where I trusted myself to fall apart." I stepped closer. "And now?" "Now I have my own apartment, a fellowship I love, boundaries with my sister, and a boyfriend who sends bridge pictures like they're romantic. They are romantic. They're concrete. Reinforced concrete." She rolled her eyes. Then she looked at me with a steadiness that made the whole story feel different. "And I still choose your door." That was the answer I had needed all along. Not the crisis, not gratitude, not dependence. Choice. 5 months later, Alderhouse offered Isla a permanent position in Portland. She called me from her lunch break. "They want me to stay." My stomach dropped. but not the way it would have a year earlier. Do you want to? I think so. Then stay. She was quiet. You're suspiciously calm. I'm internally screaming. That's more believable. We talked through trains, weekends, work calendars, and money. We did not pretend distance was romantic. We also did not treat it as a verdict. She accepted the job. A year after the night she arrived barefoot, she came to Seattle for a long weekend simply because she wanted to. That detail mattered. Saturday morning, I found her in my kitchen wearing my old University of Washington hoodie and, this time, socks. The rosemary cutting she had left with me sat green and stubborn on the windowsill. She held up the blue ceramic mug. You still have no decent coffee cups. You stole the decent one. I brought it back. There was a new crack near the handle. I stared at it. What happened? Dishwasher incident. You put handmade ceramic into dishwasher? Don't become emotional. I'm devastated. She laughed and poured coffee. Nothing was burning. Nobody needed a lawyer. Claire was still in treatment and making restitution payments. Isla still had boundaries with her. Some weeks they spoke warmly. Some weeks they did not speak at all. Healing had turned out to be less like a clean ending and more like maintenance. I made eggs while Isla sat on the counter. After breakfast, she opened my junk drawer looking for a pen and found a key on a plain brass ring. What's this? Yours. To this place? Yes. Her expression changed. Are you asking me to move in? No. Her shoulders relaxed. You have your apartment in Portland. I have this place. We'll figure out the next address when we're ready. She turned the key over in her palm. Then what does this mean? It means you don't have to knock. Her eyes filled. I immediately panicked. Too much? No, I can take it back. She closed her fist around it. Do not take it back. She added the key to her ring. The first time she came to my door, she had no shoes, no plan, and a sentence she did not fully understand. She needed shelter, and I mistook the intensity of that need for the beginning of our love story. It wasn't. The beginning had happened quietly. Long before the storm and scones left before sunrise, trash bins moved in from the rain, a blue mug replacing a broken one, a hand held in a hospital parking garage. The storm only made us stop pretending. A year later, Isla had her own career, her own apartment, her own money, her own boundaries, and several places where she could sleep. She did not need my house. That was why the key mattered. She looked at me and smiled. You realize I'm still going to knock sometimes. Why? To see if you open it. I kissed her forehead. Every time. And I meant it differently now. Not as a promise to rescue her, not as proof that I could prevent every bad thing, not as a bargain where being useful earned love. Just an ordinary promise between two people who had learned that home was not where nothing could hurt you. It was where you could arrive honestly, keep your freedom, and still be chosen. So if someone once became your safe place before either of you had the courage to call it love, tell me what made you realize it. And if this story stayed with you, like it and subscribe. The strongest love is not the love that makes you stay. It is the love you can leave and still freely choose to come back to.